Welcome to Grief and Brief. This is Henry Ford SandCastles, and today it is Peggy and Leah here to talk about school and going back to school with kids. It
Hi,
is,
Peggy.
Hi Leah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Happy to have you since you yourself have experienced this whole, I gotta start a new school year and things aren't like it was before. And so our goal today really is to kind of give like our tips and tricks of things to keep in mind as these kids are coming back in. So what's your first one?
So, as somebody who had a parent die over the summer, some of my classmates knew about my mom's death, but I was also entering middle school. So, I was entering a school with probably like 400 other new children. And so, something that my dad and aunt wanted the school staff to be aware of is that this had happened over the summer and talk about like ways to support. So I know that my dad and aunt had met with one of the school's counselors to sit down with him and kind of talk about what I was feeling and experiencing and ways to best support me during the classes and during school year, because I was entering junior high. So I was having, the six different classes and just being able to share that information with my teachers that, sometimes I may need a minute if something comes up in class or it just could be the weather that day or music that's played. Like you never really know what's kind of gonna come up in your grief. And so just being mindful that like if I needed a minute, I could um, you know, step out of the classroom or go to the counselor's office, just kind of coming up with a plan to best support me and obviously all other grieving students as well.
Yeah. And that transition into like middle school or junior high is hard enough. But to come in with such a huge change, the hard year. And so that thought I though is that even for someone who's had a death and had that in elementary school where they're going from one classroom to another and their file is going with them and all the teachers know the families and the students, um, that shift into the multiple teachers that you referenced is like a whole different beast to kind of tackle. And
Yes.
important though.
Yes. And I would say that, same thing like when I moved to high school or like when my sister moved to the middle school, like our teachers were made aware because we know that grief isn't just going to go away after a year. It kind of is with us throughout all of our, schooling and, in throughout our life into adulthood. And so it's important that um, each of our teachers, no matter what school we were at or, who our teacher was, that they were aware that we were experiencing our grief, whether that be 1 year or even 3 or 4 years down the road.
Yeah, and grief isn't you're going to have all the emotional components that can come up, and there's a lot of triggers there. And when you're walking into a new school with new teachers and new topics that you're learning, you don't even know what the triggers are that could be.
Right.
So, yeah, the role of the parent or the guardian or the advocate in bringing a child into school every year is really important all the way through.
Yes.
Um,
And
yeah.
I'll share, I know Peggy, we've talked about this before of what not to do, but I always have to share this story is I was in eighth grade, so it was like over a year, almost two after my mom had passed, and I was in vocal class, music class, something of that sort. And we were like singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I completely like lost it because that was a song that my mom sang to me as a baby. And, all my friends were like trying to comfort me and like, tried to give me hugs. And the teacher came up to me, she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, I was sobbing, like, my mom sang this to me as a baby and she died. And she's like, "Oh." go to the counseling office, like as if I was like a burden to her.
Oh,
And so thankfully the counselor I had there, she was amazing and just helped me like talk through how I was feeling and let me cry and gave me a hug and all that stuff. I mean, I think as adults, again, we don't always know how to address situations with grieving children, and that's why Sandcastles is here to obviously educate our community. But just kind of like dismissing it, really anybody's feelings is probably like not the best way to handle it. And I just like cringe every time I think about that story because I just want to hug little Leah and tell her that it's gonna be okay.
yes, please do that. Please do that. I think the we could brainstorm for a sec the impact of like what are the things? Clearly the impact of what how she handled it was is remembered years and years later. So if you're in that situation, if you're the adult that's hearing this information, how are what are better ways to respond? Like clearly just even reflect it back. Your mom died. The song song is really meaningful.
Yes.
I hear you. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. Take a deep breath. Let's figure this out.
Yes. Yes. What can I do to help? Do you
Yeah.
need a moment to yourself? Would you like to talk to the counselor instead of go down to the counselor's
Yeah, it's
office
like
like I did something wrong?
right, you were in trouble. You were getting
Yeah.
banned out of the room in front of all of the other kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are great ways of addressing it, a more appropriate way of addressing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope that that
Let's hope that
person
that never happens to anybody ever again.
Amen. That may this be the thing. So even if you don't know what to say in the moment, just take a deep breath and say, I'm really glad you told me that. Thank you for sharing. And how can I help you now? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be complicated. There's, not great, perfect words. And you never know when that's going to come up. So for you, that was a song, right? You also
Yes.
have those days like the holidays that come up or different events, some that you're going to know, like we know when Thanksgiving is and when Christmas is. Others you may not know, like it might have been somebody's favorite time of year to go apple picking or to go to the orchard. And so when you start talking about apples and orchards and have apple cider, that could be a trigger, but nobody's going to know it because it doesn't tie it except for the
Right.
family who did it. And then you have the days like the muffins with mom and the donuts with the dad
Yes. Yeah.
in early years.
Yes. And I don't want to say thankfully, but like thankfully I didn't have to do that because by the time my mom died, I was in middle school, so you're too cool for that by then. But Jacqueline, my sister, did have that, and I think that, we of course like addressed it by having like our nanny go with her or like my aunt or like another adult female figure, but we know like today there are like a lot of like families that don't just have a mom or a dad. We have a lot of different family units and um, so it shouldn't be like a one size fits all situation.
Right.
Um, and like children may be grieving an adult for many different reasons, not just death. So I think that coming up with different names to be more inclusive can definitely help a child feel more comfortable. And I can't remember what were some of the ones that we
One
we
family,
said.
okay, one family had given us, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what it was, but they had changed it at schools to muffins with a magnificent one instead of muffins
Mm,
with mom. So
yeah,
it could be, and then they targeted towards women, but like it was like adjusting it. So if you didn't have a mom, that wasn't a problem. And then I think that their donuts with dad became donuts with a dude. But we did Google this and came up with others like breakfast with buddies, donuts with the grown up, muffins in the morning, cupcakes with the caregiver, cookies with those who care. And we are open to hearing what everybody else's ideas are too. Send them our way.
yes, and I absolutely just like love that because I think that like kids should be able to participate in these fun activities and it shouldn't, feel like a burden like, oh, I want to go, but I feel like I can't go because I don't have, my mom here. So,
Yeah.
I just think that there's ways to be inclusive and to make feel kids feel more comfortable and you can always talk to the child too about like before going to events like whether they have a different name or not about how they're feeling and how to best support that child.
Yeah, that's a actually great way to sum this up because the more we have the conversation with kids about grief is normal, right? Grief is normal. When we love someone and we lose them, we are going to grieve them. And it's going to show up in so many different ways in life. And it's going to show up at school. So having a child be aware of what's happening inside of them is caused by grief and then helping them to have the coping tools to be able to deal with that, as well as having the adults surrounding them to be aware of that's happening and helping those adults to have the coping tools and the words to be able to support that child can, help overall, um, and just make the whole year better. And then you
Yes.
don't see kids who are getting stomach aches and headaches and wanting to go home all the
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, because we know that grief is not just like emotional, it affects us, our whole bodies, like from head to toe, literally. I know like I had like a lot of anxiety, so I would feel like butterflies in my stomach or like even just like sick to my stomach about things. So yeah, being able to like talk about that and something that my dad did that I tell everybody I can is that he would always just do like mental health check-ins with me, like how's your mental health doing? Is there anything I can do to support you? Just because I did struggle with some mental health issues, and I think just like not ignoring it, but just like addressing it. Like you don't need to have like a full-blown like therapy session, but just like a check-in. And if there's anything you can do to support your child, great. And if they're like, no, I'm good today, then that's great too.
Okay, that's awesome. Shout out to Vito. I do have the pleasure
Yes.
of knowing him. He's an amazing human on this earth. Um, that's a fantastic tip. That's a great one. I love that.
Yeah, I'm sure he got it from his many parenting books. That's a joke. Yeah.
Well, for all of those parents or teachers or whoever is working with grieving or having grieving children in their home, please know that Sandcastles is here. And if you have questions or concerns or your child is having trouble coping in school, please feel free to give us a call. We're happy to help. So until next time, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me, Leah.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, everyone.